Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Effective Teaching Podcast. We are up to episode 69, and what a way to begin 2021 than to have James Muir on with me. He's well known in the PDHPE sphere, and I'm very pleased to have you on, James. Thank you so much for giving up your evening to come and chat with me.
Oh, thank you. Look, it's an absolute huge honor because I've been listening to your podcast, known you for a while, and you have had two of my educational gurus on. So I feel very intimidated following them, but lovely to be here. And so, yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, don't be too intimidated by them, mate. You're an actual practitioner. You're in the classroom every day, so you have a bit of a stepping stone ahead of where they're at. Most of them are research based at this point. Some of them probably were in the classroom for quite a while beforehand.
Yeah, that's true.
So, James, I've got you on here because I want to find out what you think is the most effective strategy for helping create lifelong learners out of our students.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, I think me and you are on the same page when it comes to how we view education. And so, like, for me, the lifelong learning is just like, it's critical. I think it's totally fundamental to what we're trying to do as educators. So I don't think we're trying to be passive transmitters of information. I think what we're trying to do is inspire kids to want to learn and then to take that with them wherever they go, so they can go into the world as better people, hopefully. And, we can have a more socially just world, hopefully, with these kids who are moving forwards. So I guess for me, in that sense, it's about trying to inspire the kids or just trying to engage the kids in learning so they want to go on and become learners. And I think personally, actually, when I was a school kid, I probably was one of those kids who needed that teacher to do that to me. And so I was pretty let's say ratty as a kid when I was at school. And so I didn't really get that teacher who inspired me. And so going back into the system was like the last thing I ever thought I would do. And it's the last thing my teachers thought I would do. But I think I come from that perspective where I understand what it's like to be that kid sitting in the class who's just bored, looking out the window aimlessly, dreaming of other things. And so I guess my teaching comes from that sort of standpoint that I'm just trying to get those kids back into the classroom and like make them dream with me in some sense.
That's so good, man. Actually, teaching was the last job I wanted to do when I was leaving school.
Yeah, right.
It was the bottom of my list. Actually, the bottom of my list. And both my parents were teachers. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I saw how much it ate up their time. They worked so hard.
Yeah, well, that bit I didn't realize. But...
Yeah, I didn't want a piece of it. But now I can't get enough of it. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Exactly the same.
So, James, we're trying to get kids motivated. How do we do that? How do we get kids motivated and engaged in their learning?
Okay, so look, for me, the first thing is they've got to want to be at school. And I mean, obviously, subject-specific PDHPE, sometimes we have a huge win. It's easy to get kids involved if they're that sort of kid and they're into sport, etc. But a lot of time, in my career, I've faced a lot of apathy. And so just trying to get kids beyond the apathy and into wanting to do something has been like basically what I've been trying to do for the whole of my career. And so the way I do that is just trying to bring the curriculum to life as much as possible. So I would implore anyone to basically go and follow a school kid. So I thought about doing this and trying to get this at our school. But if you think following a school kid for a day, like 5 hours a day, they just go into a different class every hour. And then what do? They just sit there, they get talked to, maybe they watch a video here or there. And I think that would just be so boring. So my biggest thing, I think, that I hope that I bring is that every time they come into my class, it's something completely different to what they've done that day. So that's talking about the sort of theory side, obviously. So I'll try and make sure that when they're there, it's just a different experience.
That's actually quite funny. When I was at uni, one of my assignments that I had to do was I had to follow a kid for a whole day.
Oh, really?
And just go around, take notes on them and what they were doing and stuff. And it is so boring.
I can imagine.
I was just going around going, man, this is just like teacher talking at you day. You do 6 periods of it, or however many periods are at your school.
Exactly. And I think people forget that when they're like, I know we're all time pressure. We don't have time all the time to organize these fantastic lessons. It's not like I want to do every single lesson, but you've got to think from the kid's perspective. I think, like, if you want to get kids inspired and engaged in learning, then think about how you like to learn as well. I would not like to sit there for 5 hours a day and just fall asleep.
All right, James. So we're getting them motivated. You've got to create something in your lessons to hook them in and engage them. Can you give us some examples of what you do that's different in your classes? Yeah,
definitely. So, I mean, you mentioned the word hook there, and that's something I'm massive on. I didn't realize there's a whole book about the hook. So teach like a pirate, but I was thinking about hooks long before that, I guess, but that book actually was quite handy in thinking about different ways to get kids involved. So, for example, like your basic, so PDH, we do a basic sort of safe partying unit. So you could just get the kids in there to talk about their life and how they party, but that doesn't really get them inspired and want to get them in. So what we've done in the past is we've taken the kids into the drama space. We've held a rave. I'm the DJ. I've got the tunes pumping. I've taken the drama kids from that particular cohort. So we have the whole grade in there having a rave. We take the drama kids from that cohort. We give them a special mission so they don't tell anyone what they're doing. So they have a few scenarios that they act out. So things that we might see that might happen at a party. So for example, like a boy and a girl having, or like a couple having a fight, and then we just see how the other kids react. And we have kids, passing out things like that. So at the end of that lesson, we have the debrief and say, okay, this is what was happening in the lesson. We saw how you responded. And then I think the next part is about giving kids a little bit of ownership about what they want to learn. So like we say, okay, how many of those things were kind of realistic to your life? How many of those things do you think might happen or have happened? Where do we want to explore after this? And so first of all, we get the hook, and then we try and give the kids like a little bit of agency over what they're going to learn. And we find that like hopefully for most of the kids, that actually really gets them involved, and suddenly they're like, okay, yeah, I can see how this is relevant to my life now.
Yeah, I like the fact that you've got not only you creating that hook, but it's even a cross-disciplinary type hook where you get your drama kids involved, and they're doing that, and you could there's music, there's dance, there's all kinds of stuff happening in that kind of scenario. And I love how that's going to then relate to their life, hopefully at some point. I mean, maybe not all going to be at a rave, but they'll all be at some kind of party where things are happening at some point in their life. So what else do we do? How does this work? How does this actually then help them to become a lifelong learner? So even if we hook them in and we get them engaged, how does that then affect them lifelong?
Okay, so what we're trying to do, I guess, essentially is make them see the relevance and the meaning in their life. And so it's like about finding those little bits of inspiration that the kid's going to go, you know what, if that did happen to me here, what's the path? To sort of help extrapolate that for them, it's about using those open-ended questions. So like, let's say it's just drug taking or something like that. And like the scenario happened at the party. We talk about, well, why did you choose to take what was happening from the drama student? And then obviously it's a fake scenario, but we can start putting that layers onto real life. Okay, so in real life, what would you do then? And then hopefully by then you've got them thinking, okay, well, if this was a real life scenario, actually I need to find out, if I just got given something by someone, I didn't know what it was, what would I do? What's my next step? And so hopefully then you've got them kind of got the hook in where they're going to go, I want to go away and actually research something. So I heard there's this thing called MDMA, there's this thing called ice. I don't exactly know what it is. Let me go away and look and see what it actually does to me. So rather than me being there to say, okay, well, this is ecstasy, this is ice, this is heroin, whatever it is, these are illicit drugs, these are what they do. And kids just sit there and go, yeah, whatever, I know more about this than you, sir. Then hopefully you've put the onus back on them and they're like, actually, you know what, I think I know a little bit about it, but I need to go and find out some more. And so then that hopefully gets taken forward. And I guess like in our lesson sequence, the next logical step is like, rather than just talking about drug facts, is about, okay, well, what happens if one of your friends gets in this situation? What are we going to do then? And so then we're trying to go, okay, well, actually this stuff actually means something to me because it could help me and my friends when we're in this situation. Okay, so I want to find out a little bit more about first aid in this situation. What would I do if someone got really drunk and was throwing up? What would I do if someone took this and like, I didn't know, like, am I allowed to phone the ambulance? Those sort of things. So they start asking the questions, and that hopefully puts them down the path of wanting to find out more and more and more.
Yeah. I think before we started this podcast, you were talking about the idea of provocations. And I guess in one sense, your hook and that whole curiosity aspect is in essence the provocation, because you're looking to really provoke them to then be curious and stimulate their own questions and go and do their own inquiry and research process. Even if it's just going home and asking their parents, it doesn't have to be that they jump on the internet straight away. It could just be on the car ride home. They just go, oh, Mum, we were talking about this. We did this kind of pretend rave thing at school, and then they get that conversation happening, and then they're learning from their parents as well. So I can see that's really, that provocation aspect to it is, I think, what's really going to hook them in for creating that curiosity, which is what you want. You're really developing that, I think, with what you're doing there, as the students then go back home and do that.
Yeah, that's, I think, you're spot on. That's what's really important to me. And we actually did a PD about this recently, about what is deep learning. And from my point of view, curiosity is like the driver of deep learning. If you can't get a kid curious, then you're going to lose the battle, I think, to get them learning in a deep and meaningful way. So yeah, if somehow as a teacher, I've got to facilitate that curiosity. How do I get these kids curious? How can I get them to want to find things out? And like, one of the things I really love in my class is, like, I try to tell the kids, I want you to give me like an oh my God moment, or did you know, sir moment. And so the onus is on them to try and tell me something I don't know. So they're going to try and teach me something. So that, I think that kind of breeds a bit of excitement as well. Like, oh, sir, did you know this? I'm like, yep, knew that. Oh, they go away, look again, like find something else out. So that kind of breeds a bit of excitement within the classroom as well when we're doing that stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. So, you've been listening for a while. So the way we end the podcast is basically, I want to get you to give the people who are listening something they can do this week. I mean, granted, this is probably going to be January. They may not quite be in class yet, but what can they use? Yeah, they might listen to it, not straight away. They might listen to it in a couple of weeks when they're back at school. What can they do this week going into their class to really develop that curiosity in their students? And remember, they're not all PE. We're not chucking raves everywhere.
No, that's true. We can't. The raves are one-off thing, but there's lots more opportunities to do that. So I guess the answer to your question is, it's about looking through, if we go from a content sort of focus, if we feel like there's stuff we have to teach, well, do we really have to teach that? What can we look at in what we are meant to, or bound to teach by the curriculum that we have, that we can pique someone's curiosity? And so then I'm looking at, like, what is the context for my students? So think carefully about your school and your own context, because it's going to be different for everybody. I'm going to find that bit of content and go, well, how do I present this bit of content in a way that's not me sitting down and talking to someone? So I guess that's the thing that I would try and ask teachers to do, to look through all of their previous lessons, their previous units, and just say, okay, well, if this is where I usually talk to someone, what's a different way that I could present this where actually I get the kids hooked into curiosity? So how do I make it mystifying and mystical, and then want them to explore it a bit more, which is not easy. But once you get in that frame of thinking, I think it becomes kind of routine for you. Like, it's a thinking disposition that you kind of do as a program planning, a unit planning, or a lesson planning tool.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on, James, and sharing your wisdom. You have a lot of experience that you're bringing together here. And we were chatting about books that we've read before. And you mentioned Teach Like a Pirate as we were chatting then. It's actually on the AITSL or ASA, whatever it is, reading the top 10 reading list for the summer holidays for teachers. It's number one.
Oh, is it really? Well, there you go.
Yeah, I looked at it. Wow, number one.
It's great. It's worth reading. It's worth reading. Like, it's exactly. And I can't remember what his author's name is, but he has lots of really good ideas about what you can do to go into your class, and just to make it. And that's, I think, going back to the first point, is how can you make your class different from the class they've just had previously? How are you going to make your class more interesting?
Yeah, is that Dave Burgess? I think is the
Dave Burgess. That's why. That's a guy. Yeah. I knew you know.
Yeah. He's very big in America.
He is. Yeah. I remember seeing one of his talks where he does some magic at the start. It's very good.
Well, for everybody who's listening, if you would like to come over and grab the show notes, you can grab the transcript and all that kind of stuff. There'll also be links to the books that we've mentioned and a few other places as well. I might even leave links to Trevor McKenzie's stuff on inquiry-based learning, because he's really big on using provocations as well. So head on over. The link is teacherspd.net/69. I would love to see you there, but otherwise I'll chat to you again next week.